The topic is directories in a Linux machine. We will be discussing what are SRV, folder, OPT, MNT, where, home, data, proc, def, sys, tmp, root, test, run, etc. We will discuss the importance of these folders and how these folders operate in a Linux machine. This is the part 2 of our previous directories video. So we can see the folders in the root or the default libraries in a Linux machine. So let's first understand SRV. After we do ls SRV, we couldn't see anything as of now because SRV or server folder in a Linux directory stores configuration files related to the web server. So when a web server is created, SRV by default stores the configuration files of that web server. So now what is OPT in a Linux directory? OPT in a Linux directory stores third-party dependencies. It requires admin access or admin's permission for users to store third-party dependencies. Third-party dependencies here means the dependencies that are other than the dependencies present in the Ubuntu archive or Linux archive. So Linux archive has dependencies by default. So if the third party, that is the dependencies we take from the internet, that dependencies are to be stored in the OPT folder. Why? Because if we store that in the /home/ubuntu, so if suppose I'm using the directory /home/ubuntu, so that means I am the user that has that third party dependencies, and if it is stored in /home/ubuntu, if someone else has to access that third party dependency, they would need to access the user that I'm using, so they could access that third party dependencies from the home/ubuntu folder. And to have privacy and security and reliability, the best practice is to store third party dependencies in OPT folder. That would act as a common location for other users to access it without needing to log in or using the other users account or other users for that third party dependencies. So now next is MNT. MNT in Linux directory stands for mount. The purpose of mount is to add disk or mount storage or volumes. Linux admins use mount to add storage or add volume or mount the storage. If suppose by default there is a storage of 10 GB and there is a requirement to add more storage, so the storage is added and managed using this mount folder. Simply it is used to manage storage or volumes. Next is var. Var is to store the log files. It stores third-party libraries or the libraries that you download from the internet. Now home. Home is a home directory that has users that you create. For example, if I do ls home, you can see the users that are Ubuntu and Kef. So if I do su Kef, I can access or log into the Kef user. Next is data. Data in a Linux directory means that any data that can be shared to another admin or Linux admin or any other person in an organization, that data can be stored in the data folder of a Linux directory. If you want certain data or the files to be sent to other people in the organization, that can be stored in the data, so it can be accessed from that folder and easily sent to other members of the organization or other administrator or Linux administrators in the organization. Now proc. Proc is a virtual file system that provides a window into the kernel's data structure. It shows information about running processes and system status. Basically, it shows the running processes or system status. We know that kernel directly speaks with the hardware. So that kernel has a data structure. If something has a data structure, that would obviously be having some information or processes or system status that are like process IDs, CPU info, system info, or memory info to monitor memory, CPU. In a kernel, proc is used, or proc is a folder that has information related to virtual file system of the Linux kernel. Now, what is dev? Dev is a virtual directory containing device files. For example, /dev/sda for a hard drive or /dev/tty for terminals. Dev directory represents every piece of hardware that is connected to the device or the computer. Usually, a computer thinks of hardware like electronics, but Linux translates those electronics into files so that programs can talk to them easily. For example, if you move a mouse, Linux send those movements to a file in /dev for the computer to read. /dev/input, this folder contains files of mouse or keyboard. So in short, /dev directory is just like a folder full of shortcuts that can communicate to the hardware. So /sys in a Linux directory means that it is like a dashboard or settings menu of the Linux system to find information related to disk, battery percentage, CPU, etc. It allows users to access that system information as in a normal text file that is readable. So now what is TMP? TMP folder in a Linux directory is a standard directory for storing temporary files needed for short-term use by applications and users. These temporary storage can be deleted or are usually deleted on system reboot or by cleaning jobs. You can understand it by simply remembering in iPhone or iOS, if you delete a photo or any file, it is stored in a recently deleted folder. So there is a timeline until which it is permanently deleted. You can either restore or delete it permanently or wait until it gets deleted. So temporarily is similar to that. It has certain timeline until which the files in the TMP folder gets deleted. Now root. Root is a root directory that has administrative powers or administrative privileges and administrative permissions that are higher than the other users. Now test. Test in a Linux directory evaluates conditional expressions. Test command can be used for a variety of comparison and checks. It finds attribute, checks file exists in a regular file. Basically, it is used to compare or test conditional expressions. Now run. Run in a Linux directory stores runtime data of the processes. If a process is running, its runtime data is stored in this run folder. Now etc. etc is a very important folder in a Linux directory. It has system configuration files that is similar to the settings app in the Windows or settings app in our smartphones. That is like it shows you the Linux operating system information, basically information related to the system configuration. And you can simply remember it like the settings app in our smartphone or Windows or anything that is similar to settings. So it is like settings in a Linux machine. Now we understood these files or libraries or binaries in a Linux directory, but you would be wondering, when we do ls, it shows us these files or libraries in a Linux directory. So you would be thinking we are not actually entering the full path for the Linux machine to understand ls. Why is that? You can understand it by remembering that it is stored in the path. What is a path? Let's do echo. Echo $path shows us that $path is a path that stores the shortcuts of the commands. And if a command is stored in any one of these folders in the path, then it directly fetches that shortcut from those folders or paths located in the dollar path. So when we do ls, it is stored in one of those paths in these folders or in these paths. So when we do ls, it Linux machine directly checks if it is present in those paths. If it is present, it understands it as a shortcut and executes our task or our command. So that is it for the video today. I hope I made the topic simple and easy to understand. Please make sure to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a great day. Bye.